Okay guys, we are back for the reinstall of the trunk trim on this beautiful Jaguar Bonnet X type. Okay, so I had mentioned what they call strip caulking. This is a product made by 3M. It's basically a bituminous tape. You can buy this online through Amazon. But basically what it is, it's a rubber rope caulk. It's basically a bituminous tape. And you can actually take it off in pieces, roll it up into a tube, and put it around whatever you need. Fair warning, it is super tacky. Okay, so as you can see, we've did the gasket caulking around the areas where the foam had depleted and broken away. You're good as long as you keep it away and below this ridge right here. Your trim does sit up a little bit higher, as you can see where the scratch marks used to be and the line. So as long as you keep below this ridge, you'll be good. Now, just in case you don't want to use the gasket sealer around the bases of the posts, this particular trim piece that I received that was used actually had these little nylon spacers which sit on like so. So you can use those or go to your local hardware store. You can also get these in neoprene rubber, maybe a little bit thicker also, and you can use those instead of the gasket seal. Okay, so now before installing, the first thing you're going to want to do is put this rubber boot on. Is you want to take that rubber boot and slide it as close to the white clip as possible. This will give you room to have the trim on the trunk and also be able to fish this little bugger back into the hole right here and get a good seal. So that's going to be the first thing we're going to do. We're going to slide that boot up. Just be careful with it that you don't put too much pressure on it. It will slide, but you have to be very gentle with it. Okay, so we have the boot up near the terminal. So now what you're going to want to do is just very carefully, with the towels on the trunk, you want to get this up in the vicinity of where it needs to go back in. Okay, now, as you can see, that boot is now seated back in the location. You can start to install, and you can also take it and just give it a little bit of a tug from the inside. That'll seat that ring that's on the edge of the gasket. At this point, you can start installing the trim. When you install the trim, what we'll have to do is hinge the two sockets of the lights up through their ports first for the taillight lamps. Then you'll be able to fit the other screws into the ports. Generally, it's a little bit of a finagling, but it's not too hard to do. Now that everything is in place, see the boot is tight. What you can do is at that moment, you can actually pull that wire a little bit tighter if you want to. I recommend when you do pull that terminal through there a little bit, pinch the rubber boot here. And while you're pinching it, use your other hand to pull the wire through. That way it will not pull that solid boot through. Next, reattach the mounting nuts. And just do them by hand, just to finger tight. Now that those nuts are finger tight, you want to install the clips next. Okay, as you can see, the clips are now back in place. Make sure when you install them that it does click. There's two little dimples on the top of that clip that help it stay in place. Now, just as a layer of added protection, what I do is with that dum-dum caulk again, you'll see just beyond the clip there's a little tab. I like to put a little bit of the caulking strip tape around that, and then you are 100% waterproofed. Okay, so those are sealed up with those little tabs just beyond the clips. Next, reattach the connector for the trunk switch to the terminal. Reseal the foam around it. And if it's a little loose, you can run a piece of electrical tape around that to hold in place. Next, we'll reconnect the light connectors. Put that in the socket, do the two connections, and then add the clip back over. Alright, now, on these you see the two little tails that come down. With the groove in the center, the clips slide into those two little grooves on the outside. Push the clip over and push in, and it'll lock into place. Okay, at this point, just reassemble the panel. Line up whichever hole is convenient for you. I generally like to do this one first, only because then you're centering the panel. Then you take the clip, push it through the panel, and press back in, and it'll hold it in place. Generally what I like to do is put them in, but don't fasten it all the way tight yet, because you will want to adjust this pad a little bit beforehand, because you need to have it fit properly around the latch cover plate and the handle. So just put them in enough so that they hold in place. Okay, now the panel button's back in place but not pushed in completely. As you can see, they're sitting a little bit proud of everything. You want to reinstall the handle first. The handle goes in with the T25 screws, T25 screwdriver. And when you're installing that handle part, make sure that your carpeting, this lip, is sitting back behind this flange, and that'll give you the proper fit. Same thing on the other side. Just make sure that's sitting back behind the flange, like so, and you're good to go. Now to install the cover for the latch. Alright, so I just wanted to quickly show you how these work. So you can see that on the plastic Phillips head screw, there are basically like fine thread screws. What happens is as you tighten it, it will expand this part out and lock it into place. Now you do want to screw these in. You don't want to push them in because it will strip the threads on the little screws. Remember, when you're installing the latch cover, make sure that you bring the handle through first, then install the cover. So your handle should be sitting like this before the cover is reinstalled. And this is where the two plastic mounting screws go back in. Okay, once that cover's back in, you can go back, push in all your trim buttons, and you are finished. Next, obviously, check proper operation for the switch and the license plate lights.